Today we are going to review the parts of a Fender Jazzmaster guitar. As in all guitars, we are going to divide it first into the neck and the body, where we are going to find on the neck, as we already know, the headstock and the fretboard. On the headstock, we are going to find the tuners. Being a Fender guitar, it has 6 inline tuners. We have the Fender style nut, which is embedded in a slot on the fretboard. We have the markers, known as clay dots because of their color, and the side markers. On the body, we will have the pickups, the bridge, which in this case is a tune O-matic, and we have a Fender tremolo. We have the pickward, and we will have 2 pickups, a pickup selector, a volume control, a tone control, and we will have a switch that allows us to activate a very special configuration for the neck pickup. It is a very variable model. This body is the type of body known as Fender offset. There are several guitars from the brand that use similar bodies, such as the Jaguar, the Jazzmaster, and the Mustang, for example. Something very peculiar, as I mentioned, is the pickguard that covers practically half of the front of the body top. Also, the jack is mounted directly with the controls, similar to a precision bass. In the body, we also find the strap pins. We know that these are the horns. Depending on how pointy they are or not, they will be horns or shoulders. Here we could call them horns. We have a cutaway, a cut for access to the last frets. We have the waist, which in this case, as I mentioned, is offset a bit moved, just like the hips of the guitar. We have the inline tuners. These are slightly different tuners, and we'll talk about them in a moment. We have the plate with the mounting screws, as we have seen on other bolt-on neck guitars, such as most Fender models. We did a fret dressing and also installed a neck shim on this guitar. A very common problem with this type of guitar, which has a tune-o-matic bridge, is that sometimes it doesn't have the correct neck angle, and even if we lower the bridge as much as possible, the strings are still too high. This makes it necessary for us to install a neck shim, a wooden plate, and give it an angle to transmit that angle to the entire neck and achieve a comfortable action and prevent the strings from popping out. In this type of guitar, it can happen that by lowering the bridge we improve the action, but now the strings no longer have enough tension from the tailpiece to the bridge and begin to pop out. It is a very common problem with Fender offset guitars. Looking at the guitar a little closer, we have the headstock, which is very similar to that of a Stratocaster. Here we have the name of the tremolo, Fender calls it, synchronized floating tremolo. We'll talk about it a bit later. Something very peculiar that we hadn't touched on before is that, as we were saying, we have the 6 inline tuners. These are a little different since these are vintage style tuners. They are also known as safety post tuners, in which normally the string is inserted, bent, and then begins to wind, similar to Fender basses. We install the strings a little differently. If we look from the back, unlike other tuners, one screw holds 2 tuners. We can see the tuner post is very thin and does not have the nut and washer we'd normally find on a newer model Strat or Telecaster. This is a new guitar. These tuners have a vintage look. Moving on to the fretboard, we can see it is made of rosewood. Let's remember that in general, in Fender instruments, we can have 2 options, rosewood or maple. Normally those made of maple will come with a finish like the back of the neck. And when they come with rosewood, well, they don't come like that. The wood comes natural. We can also find, as we have already seen in other guitars of this brand, the access to the truss rod nut at the heel, also vintage style. We routed an access cavity to adjust this guitar without having to remove the neck. We also saw this in the Telecaster parts video. Something we can appreciate in this guitar is that it does not have a skunk stripe, which is the walnut strip that covers the truss rod channel, as it is a replica of a time when this was not used. A very distinctive feature of what a Jazzmaster guitar is its pickups, and all the electronics for that matter, since they are not conventional Fender pickups. Although they are single coils and also have their Alnico magnets, in this case they are not staggered like in the Strat. They are very peculiar pickups. They usually have a much higher resistance than normal, which in a traditional single coil pickup would be from 6,000 to 12,000 ohms, 6 to 12K. In this case they reach around 18K each, a very high reading. Probably because of the tone they give, they have 43 gauge wire. I'm not completely sure. It's something I would have to confirm. But, well, it's something very distinctive about this guitar. We can call it a hybrid because of the pickups and because of having a tunomatic bridge, as well as a three-way selector switch that combines the pickups as we already know. Bridge pickup in the first position, combined neck and bridge in the second, and neck pickup in the third position. In the middle, both pickups are in phase and parallel to create a hum-free and brighter and thinner sound, like in positions 2 and 4 of the Stratocaster or in the middle position of the Telecaster. As for the controls, we have a variant. Both are 1 mega ohm, which helps us increase the resonance peak of the pickups. That is, it gives us a brighter and sharper sound. There is also a 0.03 microfarad capacitor. Unlike the 250K controls normally used in both Strat and Telecaster, and their 0.05 microfarad capacitor. Near the upper horn of the guitar, we will find a switch with which we will deactivate the main circuit, activating only the neck pickup with independent tone and volume controls, and with values very different from those of the main circuit as far as tone control is concerned. We will have a 50K potentiometer, which is a very low value, and a 0.02 microfarad capacitor. This configuration gives us the possibility of having a much deeper sound for the neck pickup, either with the tone control fully open or completely closed. Fender calls both configurations in this guitar lead and rhythm. Lead, the downward position on the switch, which activates the normal circuit with the three-way selector switch, and rhythm with the switch upward, which will activate only the neck pickup with its controls. This diagram can be found on the Fender website and the wiring diagram on the guitar.com website, both links in the description. Very particular about Fender offset guitars is that we are going to find some version of this tremolo. The bar goes here, of course. There are many variables, and this is one of them. This tremolo has the peculiarity that we can lock it so that it is not active all the time using this button. We move it backwards, and we can move the tremolo arm. If we return it forward to the position it was in, we will no longer be able to move the tremolo arm. As I mentioned, this guitar is particular in the fact that the jack is mounted together with the other controls, similar to a P-bass, since it is within the same plate. Normally, on the Telecaster, for example, remember that we have the jack at the side, at the bottom on the lower hip. The cup jack, or another variant, unlike the Stratocaster, which has a special cavity for the jack, and the jack is mounted on a separate plate from all the controls. We can see how the strings on the bridge are installed from the top. We could call it a top loader, but, well, this is a kind of stop bar or tailpiece, a tailpiece that will hold the strings. Since it is somewhat distant from the bridge, sometimes we cannot achieve the proper string angle from the tailpiece to the bridge, which gives us the problems I mentioned of strange vibrations on the strings and at the bridge, or that the strings pop out while playing. In this case, here we can see how we already have the correct angle from the tailpiece to the tunomatic, and they follow an angle towards the neck. This angle that we can see on the neck is thanks to the neck shim that we installed. It is a piece of angled maple wood to precisely give the neck the angle we need and to have a good action, preventing the strings from popping out of the bridge or having somewhat strange vibrations. Another component that we will find here on the headstock is the string tree. This is a butterfly string tree. In the Telecaster video, we saw a slightly different string tree. There I had already explained a little about the function of this piece, which is to give the strings the correct angle from the nut to the tuner, for the same reason we saw in the bridge. When the strings do not have the correct angle, they can pop out while playing, especially when we have a low action setup like the one we offer at GBR Center. It is very important that all the strings have the correct angle. We can have guitars with 2-string retainers, as I mentioned before. That is ideal. Here we can see how the strings, as they move away from the nut, begin to lose the angle. We give this angle with the special windings for Fender safety post or vintage style tuners. Okay, that was all for this video. I hope you find it useful. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share, and activate notifications. And of course, leave your comments or questions for the channel, and if you think we missed mentioning any features of this type of guitar. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.